Take a look at the blue line and the red line. Which rose more quickly in the 1990s? The blue line, the S&P 500. And let me ask you this question. Why, after all those years from 1945 to 1990 or even 1995, for almost half a century, why, when we've had this ratio of 15 to 1, why all of a sudden did the price of the stocks rise so much more rapidly than the earnings? And I don't want you to go behind the scenes or give me any, deep subterranean meaning. I mean, what is the obvious arithmetic reason? Well, you could just say, look, the stock market took off and rose more rapidly than earnings, probably because investors thought that the stock market would just continue to rise very rapidly. In other words, you can see intuitively that the stock market has got to have something to do with the profits or earnings of the stocks. So, sure, there ought to be a relationship. Earnings rise, the stock market ought to rise. But why, you would ask, why would the stock market rise so much more rapidly than earnings? It must be because the investors thought that in the future, the stock market would rise even more rapidly. Why would they think that in the 1990s? Why would they be so optimistic? What was going on? Now, Casey and Josh, they weren't even alive. But for the rest of you guys, I know you were here. So what was going on?
The internet.
Sure. And it wasn't just the internet. It was really more than that. It was really the machines you see in front of you, right? It was everything to do with a personal computer. Because, it was the personal computer, and then, of course, it was the internet. It was all the applications, right, the spreadsheets, and then, of course, it was the media, and of course, the internet in the end. Everything to do with it, not just hardware, but software. And some of the most powerful companies we think of today, right, Intel or Microsoft, is one I mentioned already. Obviously, without that, they wouldn't even be around. And so it was this tremendous optimism associated with what came to be called technology. And there was a phrase for it all. And what was the phrase? The overall, our overarching description was the
information superhighway.
Too narrow for the whole phenomenon. The whole phenomenon was called the new
paradigm.
It was called the new what?
Economy.
The new economy. Exactly. How did you know? The new economy. It was called the new economy. Exactly. And what was there that was so special about the new economy? Give me some of the features about the new economy. Well, number one was the stock market was going to go up forever, right? Now, how many people, speaking of books, right? We talked about my book. Was there a book called Dow 36,000? There was. Was there a book called Dow 100,000? There was. By the way, is the Dow at 36,000 today? No. So, obviously, it didn't all come about. But what were some of the key features of the new economy that were supposed to happen? Well, one, the stock market was going to go up forever. But why? Keith?
Part of it might be influenced by the post-Cold War era. We now felt more secure. No?
Too complex.
Okay.
What was the simple answer? Well, they obviously thought the profits or the earnings were going to rise forever, didn't they? They just thought they were just going to rise forever. And why were the earnings going to rise so spectacularly? By the way, were the earnings rising? Yeah, the earnings were rising according to that. But why did they think they'd rise forever? Who are they, by the way? Investors. Why did they think they'd rise forever?
Demographics.
The T word. Technology. This technology was just going to go on forever, right? All these new applications, all this new equipment. And what was the new technology going to lead to? It was going, and this is key, it was going to lead to an improvement in what? Productivity. Exactly. And what is productivity? What is it? Give me a synonym for it. Give me a synonym for productivity.
Profit.
While you're thinking about it, let me tell you a true story. Let me tell you a true story, and this is going to, and when I tell you this, you're going to thank your lucky stars you were a student a long time ago. One of the things that led me to retire, I was in an introductory economics class, and it was Economics 102, and Economics 102 has to do with aggregate demand. So the very first day of class, you know, the students are sitting out like you, and I say, okay, class, what's a synonym for aggregate? What's synonym mean? Okay, synonym. What was that movie where Baby Steps was the mantra?
What about Bob?
What about Bob? Remember that movie, What About Bob, where he blows up his therapist's house? Remember that one? Remember Baby Steps? I said, okay, Baby Steps. Okay, I said a synonym is a word that means something like another word. All right, so we cleared the decks. Okay, so what's a synonym for aggregate?
Productivity.
Yes. Agriculture. That is so wrong. You know, when I saw that kid 2 years later, I said, I want you to know, Mr. Smith, in the last 2 years, that's the dumbest answer I have had. Okay, so what's a synonym for productivity?
Supply.
At least you didn't say agriculture. What's a synonym for productivity? Efficiency. Efficiency. And so, and how was the computer revolution going to improve efficiency? Well, what it was going to do was, you know, all the paper that's involved in ordering, right? You order this and order that, and forms have to be filled out, and that was going to all go, right? Everyone was going to be hooked up electronically, and so you just put in your name, and just like when you order a book from Amazon, and you send it in, and it right away then it prints the address label and everything, right? This was untouched by human hands. It was going to improve efficiency. And therefore, efficiency was going to rise, productivity was going to rise, profits were going to rise, prices weren't going to rise because everything was done more efficiently, and the stock market, it was all going to go, right? Well, did it? No. We know it didn't all go because, obviously, the stock market is still lower than it was at the peak, right? 7 years ago. Well, what happened, as Milton Berle used to say? What went wrong? Now, that doesn't mean the economy is bad today, does it? Because we've almost recovered, right? 1,400 isn't much less than 15, but it got all the way down less than 1,000, didn't it? So, what went wrong? And that's why we're here today. Does everybody understand? Because the reason we're here today is to find out how you, using the web, can get behind the numbers and find out what's going on. Because I think we're going to learn before lunchtime that if you were awake and aware back in those days, you could have seen the writing on the wall, that there was a problem. And so what we're going to do is take a look, and we're going to take a look at some of these numbers and say, hey, was there a problem? Okay? Does everybody understand? And that's going to lead us to better understand where we are today. Because when we break up into these little groups of two, you're going to look at today's data and make your own forecast. What could be easier?